And welcome back to CPAC 2022. This is day 2. I'm Grace Saldana, and I'm joined by Geoff Diehl, who is running for governor of Massachusetts. How are you?
Great, Grace. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. So tell our viewers a little bit about yourself. You were recently endorsed by President Trump. You're the new next big thing in Massachusetts. So tell us about your background.
I'm not sure if I'm the new next big thing. I'm just the next guy in line to try to upgrade our current Republican governorship to a more conservative Republican governorship. Charlie Baker, our current governor, is not running for re-election, and so I ran for U.S. Senate back in 2018 against Elizabeth Warren. We built a great team of people out there. We got almost 1 million votes, so at this point we think that we're right knocking on the door of making sure that we take over, push this a little more conservative way. We have the whole defund the police. We have a very liberal legislature, so they want to defund the police. They want to make sure that college is free for everybody. You know, government's going to provide everything. Healthcare, they want to make sure that kids are vaccinated before they can go back into schools. And parents, that should be a parent's choice, in my opinion. Keeping kids in masks when we know that this doesn't really support that, that's been very frustrating for a lot of parents in Massachusetts. So I'm a parent. I have 2 daughters. My wife and I own a small business. I served in the legislature from 2010 to 2018, so I know how government works, but I'm really a private sector guy at heart. And the private sector teaches you that individual freedom, the free market, that's really what develops all the great ideas that make America great and give us all the opportunities to innovate and succeed in our country. So, I'm excited. I have a chance to make that voice heard in the governor's race, and then when I serve, steer that Massachusetts ship in that direction, give people more freedoms.
Absolutely. And is that what you plan to focus on when you win the governorship? Will you focus on economic policies and things like school indoctrination and cancel culture?
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, first of all, when you talk about businesses, the pandemic, they shut down all these businesses pretty arbitrarily, and then the reopening was just as arbitrary. You know, if you were a bar that served food, you were closed for good. If you were a restaurant that served beer or alcohol, you could stay open, right? If you were standing up, the mask could be had to be on. If you were sitting down, they could take them off. Obviously, we didn't know at the time when the pandemic hit, so people took precautions. But as we learned from the science what was going on, I think that state government in Massachusetts and government in general around the country, federal government, was very overbearing on businesses and drove a lot of them out. And now we need to rebuild and get people to, start those businesses again, create that job growth. Under Donald Trump, President Trump, we had 4 years of economic, incredible growth. The stock market was doing well. We had record unemployment, 50 years of record unemployment. You have to go back 50 years to get to that unemployment level he delivered. Right. Energy independence. We were pulling our troops out of foreign engagements they didn't need to be involved in. And I support the troops, but we don't need them to be fighting wars for Middle Eastern countries that have us there because of oil or whatever else. So Trump said things back in 2016 that connected with me, connected 44,000 Democrats in Massachusetts unenrolled to vote for Trump. So that showed that even in a blue state, Trump hit home, and I was really proud to support him then. I was the only Republican to endorse him. And, he's now endorsed me in this race. It's fantastic because this is a conservative movement, not just in Massachusetts, but around the entire country. And I'll just add this. Back in 2010, when I won my state representative race, it was a wave year. The Tea Party had rose up. Scott Brown won in Massachusetts because he was that 41st vote against Obamacare. Massachusetts families knew that government taking over your health care wasn't going to make it cheaper, it wasn't going to make it better, and they were right. And so now we're in the same moment now. Parents, families, they're rising up saying, I want control back of my kids' lives, my own family's health care. I want to have say in what my kids' education is going to be at the high school level. You've got school boards in Massachusetts still trying to shut down parents from talking about CRT, critical race theory, still trying to block parents from talking about sexually inappropriate material that's at certain age levels. And so I want to make sure that parents have a much stronger voice. Moms have a much stronger voice with what's going on with their kids in Massachusetts. And, my wife and I are both very politically active, and our daughters, we look at their lives and say, I can't imagine government controlling them in the way that we've seen over the last 2 years. We want to change that.
Absolutely. I'm so happy to see someone like you who is dedicated to America First values, and what it's really all about is returning power to the people and restoring their constitutional rights. And most Americans, they go to work 9 to 5, they have kids, they have they don't have a lot of time to commit to politics, and they need their Republican leaders to stand up, and that's something that the current governor isn't doing, and your opponent, Charlie Baker.
Charlie Baker, and it's funny you say that. People were asleep at the switch for a long time thinking that, they were all set. Trump was in office, everything's going to be fine. But they didn't realize that a Board of Health member, a school board member, a local city councilor, or a selectman, or whatever your town's governance is, those seats are important for people to run for and support the right person for, because they ended up controlling our lives for, like I said, 2 years. Now, the other interesting thing is, nationally, we're seeing, I think, governorships, Republican governorships, doing incredibly well. Red states stayed open during the pandemic, or opened as soon as they could, and they kept American businesses on track so that we were able to at least come out of the pandemic as best we could. We're in Florida, where Governor DeSantis did an amazing job of standing up to federal regulations and getting kids back into school as soon as he could. That's the kind of thing we're going to deliver in Massachusetts, and I think Glenn Youngkin winning Virginia was a great example of why that movement's actually real and happening. Right now, there's 29 sitting Republican governors in the country. The RGA, Republican Governors Association, I was at their meetings a few weeks ago, they think that they can get to 36 governors after this cycle. 36 governors in the country, that's an overwhelming majority of Republicans and conservative leadership, so long as a lot of those governors do the right thing. And that's the trick, is to make sure that those people you support that are running for office do believe in a conservative America first, families making their decisions type of movement. And that's what's happening. That's why I'm so excited to be running at a time when finally our country is waking up. And I love the theme of this CPAC convention, right? Awake, not woke.
Right.
It's amazing.
Awake, not woke. That's right. And RSBN actually recently reported on a story that 4 or 5 Democrat governors are now finally lifting their mask mandates and their vaccine mandates. I mean, it's so politically motivated. It's motivated.
Political science, not medical science, right?
Exactly. And I'm so happy to hear that you're going to be the exact opposite.
Yeah. No, I'm really looking forward to it. If I get a chance to serve as a governor of Massachusetts, you're going to start to see, I think, all of New England. We've got Chris Sununu is currently a Republican governor in New Hampshire. I think Paul LePage is running for re-election. He was term limited out, but he's running for re-election now as governor of Maine. We have a Republican governor in Vermont, of all places. We need Connecticut to pull up their weight and get a Republican governor in Rhode Island, too. It's going to be difficult, but Massachusetts can be that continued movement of New England to come back to that New England mentality of, we were the cradle of where it all started. Exactly. Yeah. Pilgrims landed in Massachusetts. The freedom started. The first Continental Army gathered in Boston under George Washington. I mean, we are the cradle of history of the America. And if we can't get back to our freedoms that our founding fathers gave us, we're making a big mistake. So I'm excited. I'm an Eagle Scout. And when you're in scouting, you learn, leave the campground better than you found it. This is my one chance in life to really get in office and make that big difference that I was always hoping to do. I'm very fortunate to have married a very successful woman. We own that business. She runs it. I work for another company as well. So we're both hardworking folks. But our chance to give back to this country that's been so good to us, we've got that one chance. So we're going to take every opportunity to do it. Coming to CPAC and talking to all these great folks and asking them to help support the campaign. It's just part of that effort. But also I'm inspired because you come here and you get re-motivated. You talk to everybody and they're excited. They get you re-excited about what you're doing and that mission we're on.
Right, and you guys are not career politicians, and I think that's so important to
point out. I was 40 when I ran. I had no idea how to run for office. I read 2 books on how to run to get into office, and I did it, got in, spent 8 years there. I was on the Ways and Means Committee in the state legislature. And when I led a repeal of our gas tax was going to go up automatically in 2014 without a vote, I said, this is the wrong thing to do. I led the repeal movement outside the legislature because we couldn't get it done internally. And my own Republican Party punished me by taking me off of the Ways and Means Committee. So believe me, I wasn't up there to make friends. The bosses that I had were the 40,000 people I was elected to represent. Now I want to represent 7 million people, the state of Massachusetts, and they will be my boss when I get into office.
That's a beautiful message. And when is your primary, and how can people find you on social media and support your campaign?
Yeah, well, so what they want to do is go to geoffdiehl.com. My name, my mom decided to make it very interesting, Grace. She spelled it Geoff. So if you go to geoffdiehl.com, geoffdiehl.com, you can go to my website, see my platform, see what I stand for, look at my history when I was in office and what I do in my personal life as far as private sector and everything like that. You can donate. There's some cool campaign gear to buy or things like that. But honestly, it's a chance for you to also, if you have any friends or family in Massachusetts, send that link to them and let them know that they're going to get a real, true conservative in as their governor in 2022. It's so important that we continue to have this movement go forward. If we fall backwards, that progressive Democrat, the Democrat Party has been taken over by progressives. We know that. Their policies are designed to drive our country into the ground. We have to go forward and continue to elect more Republicans, winning in 22 and then winning the presidency back in 24.
And if we can get Massachusetts to turn into a solid red state, we can get any of the hardcore blue states to do so too.
It's going to happen, Grace. I can feel it in my bones.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Geoff. I appreciate your time today.
Really appreciate your time too. Thank you.
Thank you.